Hello, my name is Dearjus and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at the rest of my DVD collection. I know that last week I looked at all of my Doctor Who stuff, and today we're going to be looking at all of the miscellaneous stuff. Basically everything from basically every franchise that I've ever been interested in. Pirates of the Caribbean, Game of Thrones, Marvel stuff, it's all here and we're going to be looking at it today. Also, there's now a drinking game that my friend Will created for this for that video, and that is every single time I say excellent, which I think is basically for every single disc. So I'm going to try and say something different this time. Okay, so the first disc that we have is The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. This is the first in the sort of prequel trilogy. It's not Star Wars. The prequel trilogy for The Lord of the Rings. I actually really like these ones. Some people don't, but I think they're actually okay. They're not as good as Lord of the Rings, but they're actually pretty good. It took me a while to get this one because originally I bought this on DVD, and over time I did end up getting it. But it was like one of the last things that I bought when I bought the rest of Lord of the Rings and all that, because I bought them off my dad, or stole them off my dad. Then we have Destination of Smaug. Ultimately, I'm kind of disappointed with this film, but now that we have the full trilogy, I think it fits in quite nicely. It is quite bloated. And to be honest, that could be said for all of these films, if I'm honest. The final part is the Battle of Five Armies. Really good action scenes in this one. Nice little sort of turn off your brain and watch some things smack each other, which is quite nice. Then we have Lord of the Rings. This is the Blu-ray version. Now, this doesn't look that appealing, if I'm honest. But this was bought for £5 from Sainsbury's a couple of years ago. My dad saw it and was like, ooh, and he bought this. And this contains all 3 films on Blu-ray. And then we go into the extended edition, sort of like limited edition sleeve things. My dad bought these a while ago. Some of them weren't even watched before I started watching them. But I've watched the extended edition, I think, all of them now. So this is the extended edition for the first film, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers. Oh, and they all come in these kind of great sleeves with loads of great artwork and maps and all types of stuff. Loads of bonus features. There's like 4 discs, and you know the extended edition is like 4 hours long. So if you can get these, they're worth it. And then the final one, which is the Return of the King extended edition. Something quite weird about this is I watched this a year ago when I went to a wedding. I took all of the discs, right? So we went to the south and I put all of the discs into little sleeves, so that I brought the thing with me and I could watch them on my portable DVD player as we went. And I planned to watch them on there and back, and that would have been it. But the DVD player doesn't last longer than an hour without it needing charge. So I got through an hour of Fellowship and the thing died, and it's like a 4-hour journey. So I spent 3 hours rather bored. So the second time I was clever to try and mark it out, so I knew what I was doing on the way back, because it was a long journey, and these definitely helped. But you know, watching this last one, I realised that I couldn't find a sort of second half to it, which was strange. And then we come on to the end of The Lord of the Rings and all that, and we're into the Musketeers. A great little show. If you haven't seen it, it's excellent, and you should watch it, and that would be a drink. And it's a great show. It's tons of action. And there are 3 seasons of this, and I keep revisiting them whenever I can, because I find them so brilliant in terms of world building, and like I'm so invested at this point. I can just watch them again and again. And there is a 3rd season. Then we have The Incredibles. This was back in the day, about 10 years ago, when they used to have rental copies that you could buy at Blockbusters. This was one of them, and that is for the first Incredibles. A film that I think I watched as a kid, but I don't think I loved that much. I actually watched it when we went to go and see the second film, and loved it a lot more. And I actually liked the second one. I think the second one is actually very good. You know, and it wasn't a disappointment. It didn't hold a candle to it, the first one, but it was not a disappointment. And then we have this weird 4 film Transformer box set. So in a charity shop where I live, they had this for like £4. That's like £1 a disc, and I thought it was like a pirated copy, and it's the original discs I'm holding upside down. It's the actual discs. It's very weird. but there's no barcode on it, and it's like not to be sold separately, but there's no barcode or any. It's very, I don't know what it's from. Maybe there was a box set full of Michael Bay films, I don't know. But this is probably one of the weirdest DVDs I own. And then we have The Walking Dead Season 7. The only reason I bought this was because at the time that I was watching The Walking Dead, I wasn't able to see it all on Prime Video because the 7th season wasn't there, and this was during Series 8. And I had to buy the 7th series in order to catch up. That's basically the main reason I have this, otherwise I wouldn't have it. Then we have Joker, an excellent film scene in the cinema. Actually, haven't watched it again yet. I think it's just one of those films that you kind of want to give the time to. It's not something that you want to watch in pieces. I hate watching stuff in pieces, but definitely something that I will get round to doing at some point. Right, so something that I'm currently doing is watching Game of Thrones. So we have Series 1, 2, and 3. Now, I've seen it all before. Basically, me and my dad kind of had a bit of a mission that took us about 2 years, was to watch all of Game of Thrones. And for the cheapest way that we could, to be honest, the benefit of hindsight, I should have just gone for the box set. I think it might have been easier and made less space and would have taken less time for us to get them all. But, you know, this one was bought for a £5. This was like £15, that's on Blu-ray. You know, etc. And then it just kind of became like, I'll just get them brand new, for goodness sake. This is taking too long, we're running out of time into the new season. We're going to have to just buy them. So we have 1, 2, and 3. I'm currently at the last episode of Series 1, which means that once that is done, we'll start Series 2. It's basically a big rewatch that I've got going on those things. And I intend for it to not take me that long, as it took me like 2 years originally to watch them all because I had to get them in like pieces. But this time, that won't be the case. And I'm learning a lot more than I did originally. You know, I think I'm taking it in better. Then we have 4, 5, and 6. A great series. All of them are pretty excellent. Great production value, great characters, great acting. Boobs. Then we have Series 7 and Series 8. And these two, I think Series 7 is alright, but it's not great. And Series 8 I like up to episode 3 when things just get kind of, it's like illogical mess. It's an illogical mess towards the end. Series 7 I had to buy brand new. Basically there was a sale currently on, that was on a couple of weeks ago, and it was to get all of basically this series. You could get it for like 16, 17, 20, maybe 20, I think it was 20 quid. To get it for 20 quid on Blu-ray. So I was like, yes, okay, finally we can complete the collection. I'll start watching them all. So that is what I did, and I went and I got the final season. Looking forward to getting around to that. Once I've finished all the other 8, or the other 7. So first off we have Solo, a pretty underrated film. Actually, I think it definitely the most underrated of all the Star Wars films. Then we have Attack of the Clones. I kind of skipped The Phantom Menace in my DVDs because my dad never bought it, and because my dad never bought it, I recently just kind of took them from the living room and to put them in my shelves. So this is Attack of the Clones, and then we have Revenge of the Sith, which I think people are liking a lot more than they used to. I think over the last year, there's a bit more memeability in these films, which has meant people have liked them for some reason. So everyone's been watching them, everyone's been talking and quoting about them like they're brand new, and it's strange, you know, with the new sequel trilogy coming out, that we were all talking about the ones that came out like 10 years ago. Maybe in the future the same sort of stuff will happen with the sequel trilogy and people will start liking them again. And then we have Rogue One. I think it's a good film, but only when you get into like the first hour. Otherwise, the first hour is really boring. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not very invested in all of that sort of stuff. So when you get into the second hour, you got basically the war. That was cool. And then we have the original trilogy. Now this is one of my dad's ones that I've stolen. It is a box set that was bought for him when they released them all on DVD for the first time, I think. Now we have Blu-ray. This was kind of like the DVD release. It's a lovely little box set. I'm very happy to have this because I think it looks great. Then we have The Force Awakens. I went with the dark sleeve one. I don't know why, but for some, did I do this as like a joke when I was last time I watched this? And then we have flipping out, The Last Jedi. And then we have The Last Jedi, which I think is actually an alright film. It's not excellent, but it's kind of good. Then we have Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is excellent, and Temple of Doom, which I don't think is that good, but it's watchable. You know, it's better than some terrible films that you can watch. Bit of a weird middle, though, I'd say, with that one. It gets a bit strange. And then Raiders of the Last Crusade, which is excellent. Because this was a box set that my cousin gave me, there's also a bonus disc to that trilogy. And then we have the fourth film, which is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Yeah, it's alright. Some of the CG is a bit of a mess, but it's not a bad film at the end of the day. Then we have a Drastic World. I actually really like it. Some people don't, but I think it's actually pretty good. For what it is, even though, you know, it does feel like a bit of just like, give me your money. You like Jurassic Park, you know, give me your money. But the same can be said for the sequel, which is Fallen Kingdom, something that I've never really wanted to revisit after watching it once. I need to at some point, but all I can say is, yeah, it's fine. It's not terrible, but it doesn't fill me with enthusiasm when I watch it. Then we have Primeval Series 1 box set, Primeval 1 and 2, Primeval Series 3, which was ultimately the biggest tragedy of my life when it didn't end. And then they said that they were cancelling it, and then it was taken on by this, like, I think it was Canadian company, and the Canadian company basically actually kept it going quite well, like this. And it was on watch for 2 seasons. Which led to its end, and then it was revived in that weird New World thing that was kind of okay, but you know, it wasn't great. I actually quite liked it for the most part, but it was very strange and not really what the what the purpose of the show really was to begin with. Okay, then we have X-Men First Class. We're coming to the X-Men films. Some of them I have already taken into the loft because I just didn't want them on my shelf because I don't like them. But First Class is a really good film. It does not get the love that I think it needs. It's good. It is good. That one. Then we have Days of Future Past, which tries to kind of rewrite the timeline of the films because the third one wasn't very good. Introduces Stewart back to you and McAvoy kind of join up, and it, you know, very strange, but ultimately actually really, really fun and enjoyable as a film. Something that I'm not really familiar with the X-Men films. I don't like them as much because I can't believe that they're real because they feel like corporate products because they haven't thought them through. It's just like bouncing onto the next one. Talking of corporate products, let's come on to X-Men Apocalypse. I would describe this as a film that's just kind of hollow. There's nothing really to it that's particularly to shout home about, but you know, you can watch it one evening and that will be the end of it. And then we come to Dark Phoenix. Ultimately, because we knew that this was the end, this film was something that they just kind of threw out and it feels it. The way that they had to keep changing it because it felt too much like Captain Marvel, the fact that at the end of the day, it's a story that we've seen before, but we were getting it shown again and expected to be jumping at it like, yay, again! But I wanted to see it actually done right, and I don't think it delivers enough on that. Ultimately, it's forgettable. Then we have Deadpool, which is actually a really, really fun sort of standalone film, revenge sort of film. It's very good. I wouldn't say it's funny, because I think the jokes don't always land, but I think, because it's like the tactic of just throwing everything at you, and seeing whether you laugh or not. And if you don't, then it goes over your head, but if you do, excellent. And the same could be said for Deadpool 2, but it feels a little bit more meta, which I think means it's better. It knows how silly it is. It knows that it is kind of this sort of like throw jokes at you constantly and see what takes, but that kind of stuff. And then you have Wolverine. A really, really good film. Very underrated film, this one. Enjoyable enough for me to want to watch it occasionally, but not one of my favourites by a long stretch. Then we have Series 1 of The Flash and Series 2 of The Flash. I bought these because while the show was airing, I was like 2 years late. So I missed a couple of episodes in the second series, and I missed the first series, so I bought them in order to watch them. And then we have Legends of Tomorrow. So I really liked Legends of Tomorrow, so I bought both seasons. I think that they are really enjoyable, excellent shows. Sadly, it did get really weird, and it's like laughably bad. I like to hate it now instead of actually like to watch it. I like to laugh at it and go, oh my god, this show's so stupid. I watched the ending to Arrow recently, and I thought, yeah, it's alright, but it ain't good. To be honest, I was actually rather disappointed with the end of Arrow. It feels like after Crisis they didn't know what to do with it, so they just kind of kept plodding along and waiting for something to happen. There's like a couple of weird... You know what I mean if you watch the episode. It seems to take itself in a couple of directions and then concludes itself just as quickly. Like, it doesn't seem to want to stick to anything to make it a full episode, but feels like it's like we don't want to start anything, but we don't want to end just yet. It feels like that. And then we have Invasion and Crisis on Earth X. I think that Crisis on Earth X to me is a lot better than Invasion. They're both really enjoyable. Obviously, you have to sort of take some liberties, but it's still pretty good crossover events. Much better than Justice League. And then you have Man of Steel, a film that is ultimately forgettable and takes Superman and turns him into a basically merciless killer. There's some really weird scenes. Don't watch this with your grandparents. I was thinking, oh, it'd be like Christopher Reeve, it'd be excellent. All the family can watch it, and then he snaps General Zod's neck. Batman vs Superman. Ultimately, I do enjoy this film. I think that it gets a lot of hate for it being part of the DC universe, but at the end of the day, I think it's actually a really, really good film. I do say you don't need to watch the extended edition. It does not improve anything. If you don't like the original cut, then you won't like the extended cut. Then we have Suicide Squad. Ultimately, a bit of a mess, but it's got some good characters that save it. Deadshot and Harley Quinn, basically that's it. Captain Boomerang ain't too bad, to be honest. But ultimately, it's a mess. And then you have Wonder Woman, a really good origin story, I suppose. Plenty of great action scenes, very well delivered. And just a really enjoyable film. And then we have Aquaman, has some great scenes. One of my favourite scenes in cinema is the scene in the town, and then the camera work follows the creature around, the aquariums around. That was excellent. But ultimately, by the end, I kind of zone out. And then the final one on this row is Shazam. Really enjoyable film. Some of the comedy is very childish, but I think it slides. It's got a great personality, which I think makes it a really, really great and enjoyable film. First thing that we have is Pulp Fiction. I'm afraid I haven't watched it yet, but it does make my collection look slightly more mature. Then we have the Lego Movie, which makes my collection feel very, very childish. I think I bought this because when it came out, it was very big to me. Like, the fact that we got a Lego film that was actually good. And occasionally I do like to watch it just because I think it's a great spectacle. It's the animation, I think the style of it is really, really great. It makes it feel like a stop motion. That's what I like about it. And then we have The Dark Knight, which is an excellent... I wouldn't even say it's a superhero film. I think it's just an excellent film. It doesn't follow the kind of criteria that, makes a Marvel film, ticking off the second act action scene that could be the end, and all of that. So ultimately, I think this is just an excellent film by itself. I actually haven't seen the third one, and I don't think I've seen the first one, but I have seen the middle one. But I do really enjoy this film. I think the Joker is definitely the best part of it. Then we come on to Into the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse is a great animated film. The animation, the work that's gone into it to make a comic book is great. You can hear every single person raving about how good the animation, how cool everything looks. When they tell you that you should feel danger for the characters, I can't really take that seriously when Kingpin looks like a beanbag. First film that we have is Iron Man. It's excellent as a starting point. Don't always like to watch this over and over again because I feel like the basic plot kind of gets soured if you watch it too many times. And then I actually haven't bought The Incredible Hulk yet. I've said this for years. Through DVD showcases over the past couple of years, I've always said I really need to buy The Incredible Hulk, but I've never got around to it. Maybe this year. I said that every single time. Okay, then we come on to Iron Man 2. Ultimately, I do like it, but I know a lot of people don't, and I know why they don't. But ultimately, I think it's not that bad. Then we come on to Captain America, the First Avenger. I do like this film. I think that the style of it's quite nice, the setting, I mean, but the direction's kind of flat, and the sort of the film feels like just kind of an average Marvel film, which is something I don't like. Speaking of average Marvel films, we have Thor, something that I watch occasionally when I feel bored and want to laugh at something. I'm so glad that Thor Ragnarok exists, because that has made Thor one of, I think, the best Avengers, but I think it's also ruined these films and made them a bit more redundant. Ultimately, you know, they're well made, but it doesn't have the it doesn't make me want to, you know, what I don't always want to watch it. It's something that I can just kind of pass on a lot. Then we have Avengers Assemble, another film that I mentioned with Iron Man. If you watch it too many times, it gets saturated. Avengers Assemble is a perfect case of that. I've seen it multiple times, basically know the film inside out. It was actually one of the first Avengers films that the first film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I watched, aside from Iron Man. So somebody that my dad knew gave him like Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, and Avengers Assemble. So I saw the Hulk and went, oh yeah, let's watch the Hulk first. So I watched the Hulk, and then I watched then I watched Avengers Assemble, and then I watched Iron Man. And in that order, it was a very strange thing to comprehend the two actors playing the Hulk, and the fact that at the end of the Hulk film, Iron Man comes into the post-credit scene. Definitely was very confused, but that's, you know, kind of brought on this sort of passion for it. And that was in 2012, so in 2013 I went to the cinema to go and see Iron Man 3, and I was terrified. I don't know, I think I was like 11, so I was terrified by the blowing up suicide bomb people. Generally scared, could not sleep for weeks by this film. This thing gave me nightmares, and it's just a Marvel film. Nowadays it's one of my favourite films from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Thor: The Dark World is ultimately vanilla, as my sister likes to say, but I do kind of find some enjoyment of when it's on the telly or something to watch it, because it has some nice action scenes and all of that, but at the end of the day it's one of those forgettable Marvel films. Something that isn't forgettable is Guardians of the Galaxy. Great style, great music, great soundtrack, great characters. Just a really enjoyable film. I think it might be because it was different. I think now everything's trying to replicate this. It has gone down a bit, but nevertheless, it's still really enjoyable. Then we come on to Captain America: The Winter Soldier, something that I believe has some of the best action choreography I've seen in a Marvel film. The Russo brothers do a great job of directing this thing. The action set pieces are great. The pacing is great. There is hardly a fault in this film. If you haven't seen this, watch it. Avengers Age of Ultron is something that I was madly obsessed with, and I loved every second of it. It's one of the first cinema experiences that I've had when I've gone in, sat down and watched the entire thing and completely forgotten my sense of surroundings. Within the first scene, I kind of lost it, and my brain snapped and I was just straight in the film for the whole runtime. Ultimately, I've got a special place for this, but it's got saturated now that I've seen it too many times. Ant-Man is ultimately not very good, but alone it is a heist film that delivers on that promise. It's got some cool action scenes, and I love all the micro stuff, but at the end of the day, very forgettable. Captain America: Civil War is one of the things that I hate a little bit inside. A lot of people really liked it when I watched it. I just thought it was okay, simply because I feel like Civil War didn't have the stakes that I think Infinity War has, because they wanted to do Civil War but didn't want to kill anyone off for the sake of keeping them in Infinity War. Civil War was not the best thing to go with. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is a slower pace to the first one, but it's still rather enjoyable. Great music, great soundtrack, great actors. They seem to be having a lot of fun, and that translates to the screen. Spider-Man: Homecoming is a film that took me a long time to get used to begin with. I just thought it was just another throwaway Marvel film, which it is at the end of the day, but I think it has some nice things about Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and I think that it's actually enjoyable. Crazy. Doctor Strange, the best thing about this is Benedict Cumberbatch. The effects of this film are also a big thing, and the kind of staging and all of that is excellent, but ultimately forgettable. There's a pattern developing. Then we have Thor Ragnarok, the film that I loved so much. I did all of my Year 12 coursework on it, for that coursework to then be scrapped. But never mind. Very good film. The jokes are becoming stale now that I've seen it about 100 times, but still a great film. Black Panther, I think it gets better as it comes along. Some of the worst CGI in a Marvel film, however. But, you know, you can watch it. Like, a lot of these films, they're watchable. They're not that bad, but they're not exactly blowing me away. And Black Panther was one of those ones that didn't. I did love it when it came out, though. Avengers Infinity War did blow me away. One of the best cinema experiences I've ever had. Where I live, there is no chance that you were going to get a full cinema. And I got that for Infinity War. The ending, to be sharing that with so many people and their kind of reactions, their little subtle like, you know, that was truly special. Ant-Man and the Wasp. You can watch it, like I've said before, but it's not that great. Avengers Endgame is huge. A couple of little issues with this film. Drax doesn't get his actual like moment with Thanos. And I think some people deserved their moment with Thanos, which was sidelined in order to, you know, keep the runtime down, which is 3 hours anyway. Which is also a bit of an issue, is that it's 3 hours long and can take up an entire evening / afternoon if you want to watch all of this. Captain Marvel, something that I don't really like. I think that it has some nice moments, some good scenes, and some promise, but at the end of the day, I think that the ending doesn't do it for me. The fact that she says, now I'm going to defeat the great intelligence thing. It's like, now I'm going to rip up the rule book and you're going to have to use my rule book. And the fact that, you know, I really want to see the standoff between the bad guy and the good guy. And I don't believe in the bad guy enough anyway, but I didn't even get the standoff. She just zaps him and that's the, and then she's like, I don't need to prove it to you, but you've just zapped him, you've proved it to him that you have, okay, just leave it. It's too difficult to explain without writing a script. And then we have Spider-Man Far From Home. Really enjoyable film. Ultimately, probably will get forgotten in a couple of years, but I did really enjoy it. I enjoyed Spider-Man a lot more than I did in Spider-Man Homecoming. And I liked how they showed the end to him. And I've realised that I've done Endgame and Captain Marvel in the wrong order. I think the order was a bit out there, but never mind. Okay, and then for the final section that we have is this column. So let's get started on this. So we have Merlin, the first series. For some reason I bought this in volumes. Actually, I remember it's because my granddad bought me for Christmas one year one volume of this. I think it was the first volume. So I bought the second volume in order to finish the series. Also, I think it might have been my birthday that year. This was bought for me, which is the second series. Really enjoy this series. In full, I enjoy this series. It's got some really great episodes in it. Some of which I think are just kind of like, yeah, that's fine. But overall, I like it. And then we have series 3, something that I don't really want to watch a lot though, because I feel like it's just too sad at the end. You know, I think the ending makes sense, but I just find it too sad. You know, I was heartbroken as a child, and there is the final dreaded season. I was absolutely heartbroken when it ended. But I'm glad that it ended when it did, because I think at that point it was becoming quite strenuous, and it was running out of like threads and all of that, so it made sense. And then we have Sherlock series 1, 2, and 3. I haven't bought Abominable Bride or Series 4, simply because I didn't like them that much. But I will get round to it at some point. If I see them for really cheap, I will get them. But, you know, I found like it was more like style over substance for that for that 4th series. And then we have, there was a few logic problems as well. And then we have Harry Potter and the box set, which contains all of the films on Blu-ray. Harry Potter is Harry Potter. It's one of those things that I grew up with. You know, the first film came out in, 2001? Maybe a bit earlier. And so I've always grown up around Harry Potter because it's come out the sequence has come out since I've, you know, grown up. And I went to the cinema to see the last one, because that was like the one when I was like closest to 12 to go and watch them. So ultimately, I have a great attachment to these films, and I think my family does as well. Then we have Fantastic Beasts. Two that I think are just... The first one is actually really good. I saw this in the cinema. It was really, really enjoyable. But then the second one comes out, and there's tons of logical problems. I was going to do a video on it, and I wrote a script on my computer for it, but ended up not doing it because I felt like the time has passed, and I cooled down. So ultimately, the first one is good, but the second one not so much. I don't think JK can write screenplays as well as she can write books. There's a few logical flaws, I think, in there. And then we have the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. I just have to knock all the discs over to get... So we have the first film, Curse of the Black Pearl, which is absolutely excellent. There is some great moments in this. Some great action scenes. Just truly excellent cinema. Then we have Dead Man's Chest, which I thought was a bit weird. Wasn't quite happy with the ending. Felt like a part one. And all of that. So... watch it occasionally, but at World's End, which I have to argue is my favourite, I think it has a very cool battle in it, actually is the end, and really, they should have left it here. But they decided not to, and they carried on with On Stranger Tides, which is ultimately a little bit silly. Feels a bit like an Indiana Jones film. Forgettable, and just... it shouldn't have been made, let's be honest. And then we have Salazar's Revenge, which was the fifth one. Not too bad to begin with. It's not terrible by any means, but ultimately should have stopped at 3. Right, for the whole video and the video before, I've had these ones behind me, and that's because I have a special connection to them. So the first, this one, Logan, something that makes me cry every single time I watch it. Someone that sort of... I grew up a bit with Wolverine, the same way I grew up with Harry Potter and all of that. So Logan has a special place in my heart because it is his final story. And also, it was my first Steelbook. I bought this from HMV and I was extremely happy when it came. The only problem I have with it is that there's no bottom. So it just slides right out. But just a really, really enjoyable film, this one. Well, I wouldn't say it's enjoyable, it makes you cry, but it's more of an experience than something that you want to watch over and over again because it makes you happy. Speaking of something that makes me happy, this film, some of the best action scenes in this film. I love the kind of James Bond satire-ness to it. Basically it's my favourite film, and once I saw that there was a Steelbook for it, I went and I bought it. And the Steelbook for it is great as well, and I find that Steelbooks give you a bit of an appreciation for those films. And then we have the second film. This is called The Golden Circle. Has some of the same points, some of them not so much. Becomes a little bit more spectacle and less about substance, but ultimately it is rather enjoyable. Right, so that's my DVD collection. There's an absolute mess on my floor now of all the DVDs that I'm going to have to put back to where they're supposed to be and in order. It took me an hour last time. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure you give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I shall see you soon.